Hi, I'm Jenny Antlack, President of Learning Journeys.
And I'm Terza Lewis, Director of Creative Development for Learning Journeys.
And today we are talking about being. Terza, before we even get into the topic, when have you happened to drive your car, end up at school, church, work, the grocery store, wherever, and you park, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't remember how I got here.
Oh my gosh, I do this all the time. Today is, I don't remember what day today is.
But there's a problem too.
That's a problem too. But basically yesterday I did this with the kids, driving them to their homeschool co-op. Got there in the parking lot, shut off the car. Not exactly sure how we got there, but we got there safely.
Well, as I was pondering this topic, I was thinking back to, and this was many, many years ago, but when I had my second child, I think I was juggling so many things, and I would have to go from Woodbury, which is a suburb of St. Paul, past Minneapolis, north of Minneapolis, to drop him off at daycare, and then go to another city for work. And I cannot tell you, and this is very embarrassing, but I cannot tell you how many times I get in my car and I'm already thinking work. Get in my car, drive, and then about 20 minutes later, I'm in downtown St. Paul. It was like I did this whole loop and I couldn't remember how that happened. And my boss often was like, Jenny, I know you get up early. What happens? And I'm like, I don't know what happens. But it freaked me out so much, Terza, that I started to put a Post-it note on my steering wheel in capital letters saying, Jenny, do not forget the child.
Right. Well, I'm glad you put the Post-it note on the steering wheel, because the child is very important and must not be forgotten. But, I've had kids too. And so I just think to myself, like, when you're that stressed, and you've just got that many things on your plate. I was coaching a gal just the other day, and she's talking about how her husband, she's pregnant, and she's talking about how her husband doesn't get that she's already adjusting so much of her life to accommodate the child. And so he has an idea about how they should do work, right? Like, you're there for your coworkers. And she's just like, I am there for my people between these hours. And after those hours, I am not. And she's like, I feel bad about it. But after the course of conversation, what she realized is that she's like, I just don't have the mental capacity anymore. Like, you have to be in this box so that I can like focus on healthy eating over here. And so I think that's what honestly happens, is that we think that it's a matter of us being lazy, but it's not absence of thought. It's just when we have all of these different stressors, good or bad, we tend to go on autopilot to manage it all.
Yeah. You mentioned even earlier about, not in the recording, but earlier today, about us, this autopilot being like sleepwalking through our lives. And I think that that is what we are doing, is that we aren't consciously paying attention. And what are all the things that, while we think we're being efficient, right, or maybe we're not thinking at all, what do we miss?
Yeah. That whole thing of sleepwalking through your life, I saw a video, a small short video, that was an animated clip about just that. And what happened was, when the person woke up and really looked around, began to realize all the things that he had missed. So my example of that is yesterday, as I mentioned, I drove the kids to the co-op, and okay, great. We got there safely. Don't remember the drive. But the thing about it is, I also don't remember what conversations I had with my children in the car. So here we have my children, my priority, and I can't remember what happened for those 20 minutes with them in the vehicle. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, they just got collapsed into the car ride so that I could just manage and make it through that part of the day.
Right, right. And I think about, we use the term, or we brought up the term ready at hand versus present at hand in classes. So when we are coaching people, we really do want them to be present at hand versus ready at hand. And ready at hand is your example and my example of driving, where we are on autopilot and we don't have to think about the driving itself. Yet, what do we miss inside of that? And when we're coaching people, we really want them to be present at hand. We want them to be present to themselves, to their values, to who they want to be in the world. And so that they make more congruent or meaningful decisions in their day-to-day lives.
Right.
And then I look at, I think it was last night, my brain is probably as mush as yours. I can't even remember what day it is either. But I believe it was last night. I came across an article or research, and it was Stress in America poll. And it looked at the last 2 years of how are people responding to, or what are they concluding even of the last 2 years with the pandemic. And they talked about this overwhelm and fatigue, and that 87% of them feel like they are that there is this constant stream of crisis. And that when we are in that place, how does it kick in our autopilot? And does it even do it more so than the simple pieces of driving somewhere?
Right. I absolutely agree. I'll use this example. It's my own example of even experiencing mild depression, right? Of the fact that when that happens, like there's parts of you that get dimmed and there's parts of you that tune up. And I think honestly, what's happened in this whole situation with the last 2 years of crisis all around the world has been that our bodies and our minds are really tuned into crises.
Mm-hmm.
We're amped up, we're ready to spot it wherever it is. But in order to manage that, we've also tuned or toned down our awareness in other areas. And so I might be really tuned to crisis, but not aware of how I am interacting with the person right next to me, with the coworker that came back into the office with me, with my spouse or partner or children, or even the neighbor down the street. So in some ways, we've amped up this awareness and this tuned in part of our mind to all of the potential danger.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to manage that, our bodies are very efficient. We've kind of muted the rest of it. And the interesting thing is, I think it is purposefully coming back to how to find awareness in small areas, not in huge ways, but in small areas that will help us to come out of that and to kind of regulate. But it doesn't happen subconsciously. Subconsciously, when the body's taking over, it's just doing what it's going to do, and it's going to do it really efficiently.
Yeah.
Um,
And efficiently and effectively are two different things.
Absolutely.
And so I want to kind of mark your place of that simple awareness versus I think what's happening right now is people are noticing that we really aren't that aware, and we are providing information or education to people to say, this is how you up your awareness. And this conversation is about taking a step back and saying, okay, yes, we invite you to really up your awareness, but can it be more simple? Because you're already holding so much.
Absolutely.
And can you take on one more thing? I wanted to, your comment about, and so I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
But your comment of what do we tune out to tune in, and how does that impact us? I think about even for the last 2 years, I really did tune into, oh my gosh, we have to make sure that we are effective. We had to change our entire structure for our company to survive. And I think because I was so hyper tuned into that, that I did tune out on how to respond to my boys. And now, granted, they are older, and yet they're going through the same stressors and their own stressors on top of everything. And so I was creating these stories of, yes, I love my children, I need to feed my children, so I better focus on how to keep the business running. But what I was also doing inside of that is not feeding them emotionally. And so I was justifying, I was trading one value for another value and creating a story inside of that that says, well, for right now, I got to do this.
Yeah.
Yet how did it disconnect me from who I want to be and how I want to show up?
Yeah. Thank you for that example, because I think people need to really understand, not just that apparently we've had a rough 2 years, but also just that stress and exhaustion rarely will consult you as to whether or not their actions that they're pushing you toward align with your values. Right? It's just going to try to alleviate itself. And for those of you who are watching, they're just like, wow, they got deep real fast. I just want to pause and let you know that, yeah, we do that. We do that here. We want to be real, relevant, and relatable to life. And so these are the conversations that we have because we see what's happening in the world and we see the weight of this on people and we want to be of service. And so that's,
and we are not only do we see it, but we are in it too.
Right. Absolutely.
We get a golden ticket to say, you don't have to deal with this. You can just talk about this.
Exactly. Oh man, I wish we could get that. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
No, I feel like it's like, no, you get to experience it and explain it. Have fun.
Yes. What could be better than that? Well, I want to go back to that piece that I said of the simple versus complex way of being in the world. And that's really what today is about, is that can we have a conversation? And every single time that we get to talk to you, it is about these simple experiments that you can create for yourself, and you get to shape them. That makes sense and meaning in your life. And I can't tell you this is how you should do it. But in this session, we're giving you a starting place. And I mentioned that I made a story to justify my transactional way of moving values. I don't know that I was consciously doing it. I think I was unconsciously moving elements to make me feel good or okay, not maybe good, but okay about what I was doing. And I think that that's really this piece of autopilot, is that we're moving things, but what we're also doing is picking up information every second of every day and sorting it. And where we sort it is into these story files, is what I like to think of them as. I don't know what else you would call them, but we are meaning makers. And so to do that, we have created stories of, this is what this means. And then I put it in these files. And so when stress increases, I can use my autopilot to say, oh, that means this. So I don't have to think about it. And I'll just pull that out and keep on going.
Yep.
Not thinking twice about it. And so today, Teresa and I just want to demonstrate that, of how easy it is to make meaning of even the simplest of things. And we're doing it all the time.
Absolutely. When you said story files, I went to the old fashioned like filing system where you like pull the files, but then I know for some people it's more like filing tabs, right? So you've got all these tabs open and I just need to sort them because it's so overwhelming. So slot you here, slot you there, slot you over there. But so the example of just how simple it can be to make these stories is that Jenny and I decided to look at shoes and our assumptions around shoes, which sounds kind of odd, but hang with us. One of the reasons why we decided that this would be what we would talk about, or the example that we'd use, is because for the last 2 years, we've kind of lived in a shoe optional world.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I remember people actually commenting about that, like when people would get on Zoom or, Microsoft Teams early on in the days of everybody being in their homes. It's like, do I wear shoes to this meeting? I feel weird just being in my socks. So I thought it was really funny. And Jenny, why don't you kick us off with just the thoughts around shoes and how we make stories about them?
Yeah, well, you think about when somebody shows up and every time you see them, they have on tennis shoes. What immediately do you think of? And I'm going to ask you, Terza,
Mhm.
if it was, well, who in your family, be
Yeah.
it that extended family, just wears tennis shoes, no matter what the occasion is?
Well, I actually don't even have to look very far because my husband loves, he calls them trainers because he's from the Caribbean originally. But tennis shoes, trainers, sneakers, whatever you call them, those are his love. And honestly, when we went to the church that we're at now, the pastor wears tennis shoes, really nice ones. And my husband was just like, oh, I like him. So, but I usually think of a more laid back personality. Like I just kind of assume that that person's probably kind of chill if they're always wearing sneakers or tennis shoes. I'm like, oh, you're probably a pretty laid back personality.
Yeah. And how does that story or that conclusion that you make influence how you interact with them?
I think it makes it feel, the story I'm making up in my head makes them feel more approachable. So
Mm,
I'm probably more likely to go up and say, oh, hi, how are you? Hey, what you doing? And I probably would not approach them in a more formal manner as I would with somebody with dress shoes. My tone would probably change.
mm,
I might hesitate and just kind of take the measure of like, who is this person in the room if they're wearing like very formal shoes, versus if they're wearing tennis shoes. I don't know, that just seem approachable to me.
mm. Yeah. What about somebody that always wears flip flops and all of a sudden they show up in high heels?
Absolutely. I wonder where they're headed. Like, I want to find out. I'm like, where are you going? Do you have an interview? What's going on? What's happening in your world? Because you're showing up so differently than what I know. And the person could love heels and just be like, no, I felt like wearing a sassy outfit today.
Mm,
But in my head, I'm just like, there must be something big going on in your world. You've switched to fancy shoes.
mm.
Yeah.
What are the hardest shoes for you to put on?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually going to Florida this coming week
Mhm.
for a little vacation, and I am not good with sandals. And you would think it was because, like, I love my feet. I think they're super cute. So it's not my feet. It's I don't. I push, 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 and
Mhm.
so playtime or downtime is like the reward that never comes. And I literally embody that in the idea of flip-flops or sandals.
Mhm.
Like, so it's actually really tough for me to put them on because it feels like these are shoes that I don't work in and I don't know how not to work. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
So we'll see how this week goes.
Yes. I'll ask you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, see if you were able to wear the sandals all week long. Or,
Right.
well, and I think, gosh, just those simple decisions, like how much time do we even contemplate and when do we not contemplate and we just put something on and it actually impacts us?
Mhm.
Or that we glance down at somebody's feet and make up this immediate story of they mean business. They are laid back. They are, and how does that interact with our being and who we want to be?
Yeah.
And, and so even at the end of this is what we invite each of you to do is to really think about what shoes will you choose tomorrow?
Yeah. And even what shoes did you choose today, if you're wearing any?
Yeah, I haven't quite made it that far yet.
Yeah.
And when you do choose your shoes, where will they take you? What
Mhm.
will it feel like in those shoes? And what do you hope to experience because of the shoes you chose?
Yeah.
And then the last question we have for you is what will you check out or notice that maybe you haven't picked up on, or you've assumed something and now you want to see if that's true?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So these are parts of the conversations that we have in the Learning Journeys courses that are available. We're so thankful that you joined us for this conversation, and we want to invite you to continue the conversation. This is part 1 of 3.
Mhm.
And so you can check out wherever the link is. You can check that out to see more of these types of conversations and hear these types of compelling questions. So we hope that you will continue joining us for these conversations, because we really think that these are the conversations, just these small moments that people have. And then as you become more considerate of your world, you will reach out to others and help them to become more present to their own.
Absolutely. So please join us for the next session, which is on shifting our being. If we shift how we show up, how does it influence how people show up for us?